Investigators in the House impeachment inquiry expect to hear from 2 more government witnesses behind closed doors today. A New York Times article reveals more of what was given in testimony by a U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel yesterday before House committee members.
Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman told House committees Tuesday a National Security Council aide, Vindman, a native of Ukraine, was listening in on the call. The Times reports left out of the transcript, according to Vindman, were remarks by Mr. Trump about tapes of Joe Biden. It's unclear if that means a video recording of the former vice president talking about U.S. pressure to get a Ukrainian prosecutor fired.
There's Bob Costantini. California wildfires leave more than 1 million people in the dark as blackouts occur for a 3rd time this week. Power is out at this hour for residents in over 24 counties. The Nationals have tied up the World Series after beating the Astros 7-2. Game 7 set for tonight. I'm John Trout.
The world's top business and political leaders prefer to speak to someone who understands them.
We're looking right now at the White House.
Balance of Power with David Weston, weekdays at noon Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. A resilient American consumer helped the U.S. economy expand more than forecast in the 3rd quarter. Gross domestic product expanded at a 1.9% annualized rate. Meanwhile, companies added more workers to payrolls than expected in October. Business payrolls increased by 125,000 after a downwardly revised 93,000 gain in September. That according to data out by the ADP Research Institute. General Electric raising its 2019 cash flow forecast for the 2nd consecutive quarter, giving Chief Executive Larry Culp's turnaround effort a much-needed boost. Shares are up 8.7% in early trading. And sources tell Bloomberg Apple expects iPhone sales to return to growth next year as the introduction of a line of 5G devices supercharges demand. Futures this morning, they are little change to higher. S&P futures and Dow futures up a point. NASDAQ futures up 13. The DAX in Germany is down 0.25%, and the 10-year Treasury up 2/30 seconds, yield 1.83%. This is we await a Federal Reserve interest rate decision. NYMEX crude oil down 0.3% or 17 cents at $55.37 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.2% or $3.20 at $14.94 an ounce. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. It is 8:48 on Wall Street.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
Good morning, everyone. John Farrow and Tom Keith. Thrilled you're with us. And right now, we're going to consider Westeros. It'll be reporting late on December 12th. Westeros will come in a little late.
Oh, winter's coming. That's smart, Tom.
Teresa Raphael's going right there. She's nailing it with the Game of Thrones theme on to December 12th. What's House Targaryen going to do here on December 12th, Teresa?
Shall I do that thing where I introduce the guest first?
No, Teresa Raphael.
Come on, it's really
Bloomberg
original.
Opinion.
Let me try it.
Okay.
Bloomberg Opinion columnist.
Yeah,
Raphael.
She's fabulous, and she goes right to Jon Snow. Okay, what's going to happen with House Targaryen on December 12th?
I did have a reader who sent me a note yesterday saying, the Remainers are the Lannisters. How can you write that? So leaving aside, who's going to benefit from this winter. But December 12th is, I would say, the most important election Britain has had in a generation. It will determine not only Brexit, not only the how and the when, but also really the shape of economic policy, because we have 2 very different parties, the government and the opposition, with very divergent proposals for how to run the British economy. I wouldn't say the Conservative one is a traditional Conservative government by any means. They've opened the spending taps, but the Labour offering is very radical. And so I think the question for voters on December 12th is this a Brexit election, or are they voting on something much bigger than that?
Is this the first election where they become like Europe, where it's not just classically Labour, Tory, but that finally it's 3 and 4 and 5 parties?
Well, it did look for a while like this would be a sort of 4-party race with the Conservatives, the Labour Party, the newly resurgent Liberal Democrat Party, and Nigel Farage's Brexit Party. Now, what's happened after Boris Johnson sealed his New Deal with the European Union is that the Brexit Party has fallen back quite significantly in the polls. They were around, I think, 11% the last I looked. And we haven't heard a lot from Farage, but the Conservatives are, quietly and not so quietly telling him, look, back off. You want Brexit. We're delivering Brexit. It would be, crazy to run against our deal. And indeed, many Brexit Party candidates and supporters are, wavering. And some of them have said, look, this deal is good enough for us. So I think now we're down to maybe 3 parties. We don't think the Liberal Democrats are going to be strong enough to get a majority by any stretch. But there is a possibility that Remain parties, if they did well enough, could somehow cobble together a coalition. But really, at the moment, this is Boris Johnson's election to lose.
Talk to me about the campaigning, Therese. The mistakes so many of us made, myself included, going into the last election in 2017, June of that year, was believing it would be a single issue election. Then the campaigning started, and Jeremy Corbyn hardly talked about the EU and Brexit. Is this a lot more than just about Brexit this time around?
I think it's always more than about Brexit because, for voters in their day-to-day lives, what they really care about are, how crowded is their child's school classroom. Jess Phillips, the Labour MP, just stood up in Parliament and said, my son is turning 11. He can only go to school 4.5 days a week. His classroom is, 30 kids in it. What are you going to do about that? So Labour will try to make this election about those issues that will undoubtedly resonate. But Labour's got a problem. Its Brexit policy is a bit of a mess. It entails a negotiation, a renegotiation. It entails a referendum, maybe 2 referendums if they join with the Scottish National Party. And that's not an easy sell.
Therese, you capture in your writing not only the elites of London and all the hoity-toity stuff we look at every day, but also what the people are talking about. Take us away from, the day-to-day madness of this. And for our American audience, explain, and you name the village, you name the town, you name the city, how are the people responding to December 12th?
I think there was a time when people did not want another election. There had been, 4 votes. You've had referendums. You had the 2017 election. At this point, they are so tired of the gridlock in Parliament and hearing about Brexit. I think everyone is resigned to having a chance to change this Parliament and move forward. But, you want to talk about a town or a place where it gets real, Wolverhampton in the Midlands, Brexit voting area, but Labour supporting. So what do those voters do? Do they go with Boris Johnson, or do they stick with the Labour Party as their families always had? That's going to be where this is going to be decided.
Thank you so much. And this is a perspective we value. I'll have to read in on this, folks, to be honest. I think it's a soccer team John Farrow talks about once every 12 or 14 weeks. But Therese Raphael, what is the affinity, the attraction of the Prime Minister to people who are generationally endowed of the conservative elite of London?
Yeah, I think this Prime Minister is going to try to distance himself from past conservative governments. And one way he does that is say, I will spend the money. I'm not afraid to pour it into in the NHS. This is something Americans, I think, you may not understand, but the NHS has an 80% approval rating in this country. 80% of people love the fact that they have health care free at the point of delivery. It's taxpayer funded, and you have a conservative government that is going full on towards spending more money on that, more money on police, more money on education. That's how he's going to try to win over those voters who have said, the Conservatives, therefore, they're for the wealthy voters in the Southeast, and he will try to appeal to that. He's also going to try to appeal to young voters. The Conservatives have lost the youth vote in 2017, and he's going to try to bring them back. To the extent that he can do that, he's got very good chances.
Trez, thank you so much. Writing for Bloomberg Opinion, can't say enough about the Game of Thrones angle from 24 hours ago as Trez Raphael dives into this election to December 12th. I learned a lot there. I hope that was good for all of you as well. She's with Bloomberg Opinion. Right now, sooner than you think, which is the basic idea of technology, and certainly any big company names are giving us sooner than you think. Paul Sweeney in Brooklyn today at the Bloomberg event, sooner than you think. Paul Sweeney, are Facebook and Apple, are they going to be sooner than you think like this afternoon?
I think they are here. I think, Apple is interesting. Pretty good demand for that iPhone 11. I think a little bit better than expected. But again, I think the focus will be on the services business, Tom. They're really trying to grow that business as the iPhone market continues to mature. So investors will be looking at the top-line growth rate for their services business.
Talked to David Rubenstein today at length about Washington and breaking it up, and he brilliantly, Paul, went to the difference here is not a breakup of domestic companies, but these are truly international juggernauts. Does America understand how international these FANG stocks, these sooner-than-you-think stocks are?
I don't think they do, Tom, and you're absolutely right to call out the international business. And for most of these companies, Facebook, Apple, these companies, the majority of the growth is outside of the U.S., Europe and Asia Pacific, and certainly in China. So these are truly global companies, unlike, say, a big media company like Time Warner or Walt Disney, which tends to be more domestic.
Paul, Facebook is Sheryl Sandberg joining us later this afternoon. Look for that. I believe it's 6 p.m. Wall Street time, 6:20. Thank you, Wall Street time. Sheryl Sandberg has to, follow up on Mr. Zuckerberg's tepid event in Washington. What would you expect her to say on that?
Yeah, I think the message they're trying to get across to not just regulators, but also to investors and consumers is that we're on it. We recognize the seriousness of the problem, and we're on it. We're allocating huge technology to this spend, and we're putting a lot of people on this. And it's better for us to regulate ourselves than government to come in and regulate speech, but we'll see.
Well, it's going to be an interesting hour. And General Electric, of course, out with earnings. They do better than organic growth as well. Love Therese Raphael giving us a briefing there on the British elections, and she goes right to Jon Snow, Westeros, and the woman with the dragon. We'll do much more on the global ramifications of Brexit and the British elections as well. And of course, today is Fed Day. Maybe this should be the music as the chairman walks in at 2 p.m., the press conference at 2:30. I think that would change a hawkish cut press conference. This is Bloomberg.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and explore tropical rainforests. Fly from London Gatwick to Costa Rica with British Airways from £218 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price, just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
American economic power and future depends on trade deals.
In many of these countries, we're still seeing people struggling.
Finance.
We're in this vortex of uncertainty. These big companies, they just sometimes lack focus.
Investment.
The markets have become a little bit too addicted to the Fed.
Timing the market is just so difficult.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. We're thrilled you're with us. Good morning in Boston, New York, and Washington. Early morning, Bloomberg 960, the Bay Area, San Francisco, and of course on Sirius XM. Special good morning to all of you worldwide on this Fed day. A lot going on at 2 p.m. New York time, Washington time this afternoon. Hugely anticipated press conference of what has been deemed a hawkish cut meeting. Our Michael McKee will be in that press conference, and no doubt we'll have important questions for Chairman Powell. GDP out. Thank you, American consumer. A better statistic. I like what Avery Schenfeld up at CIBC World Market said. He said, look, this is pretty much right on the potential of the economy. Don't tell that to the politicians who are saying 1.9% has got to be subpar, Democrats and Republicans as well. But there it is, and we had a little bit of a higher yield. We've given that up right now, churning it. The tape's got a real Fed feel. I would point out sterling stronger maybe into day one of the general elections in the United Kingdom. It is an earnings season, and it is the cult pixie dust. And GE surprising David Wilson, very much so. Surprising, and I like, they're looking forward to sustained macro volatility for the remainder of the year, but the micro reality for GE is better than good, right?
It's all about cash flow at this point. I mean, they're looking to pay down debt, straighten out their finances, and they had good things to say on that score. And GE shares are up 8% in early trading. Company raising its cash flow forecast for this year. For the second straight quarter, they're now looking at the industrial businesses generating as much as $2 billion of free cash flow available to repay debt, among other things. And GE had seen no more than $1 billion previously. Then you have Johnson & Johnson up 3%. The healthcare company said new tests found no asbestos in a bottle of baby powder that triggered a product recall about 2 weeks ago. Now, U.S. regulators had found traces of asbestos when they tested that bottle. So a plus, and of course, this is all tied into lawsuits claiming that the baby powder caused cancer. Activision Blizzard is up 3%. The video game maker said sales of its new Call of Duty Modern Warfare game surpassed $600 million in the first 3 days of release.
$600 million?
Yeah, that's the biggest opening for any of Activision's games. Wow. You've got a deal in the industrial distribution business.
Annixter.
Yeah, exactly. Annixter International, up 14.5%.
It's a smaller company, but it's a company everybody's followed for years in the street.
All right, well, there you go. Now they're going to have to follow Clayton, DeBillier & Rice, the private equity firm, offering to buy Annixter for about $3.8 billion, including debt. A couple of analyst calls of note. Biogen's up 2.5%. The drug maker was raised the equivalent of buy from hold at Sanford Bernstein. Nordstrom, on the other hand, down 4%. The department store chain cut to sell from neutral at UBS, and this coming after the Nordstrom family decided not to increase its.
Did they say anything about Manhattan?
I haven't taken a closer look. But of course, it's early days, so
it is very early days.
We may well find out when the company reports its fiscal third quarter results. You've got kind of a reshuffling in the Medicaid insurance business. Centene is up 6.5%. That company expanded its Texas Star Plus Medicaid program by winning contracts for 2 service areas of the state, according to Jeffries.
Interesting, out of St. Louis, right? I think so.
Something like that. Molina Healthcare, on the other hand, lost awards for 4 of 6 areas, and its shares are down 9.5%. So these state situations a big deal. Mattel's up 22%. The toy maker resolved a whistleblower allegation over its accounting that derailed a $250 million bond sale in August. And Mattel reported earnings and revenue that beat analyst average estimates in a Bloomberg survey for the 4th straight quarter. Some more earnings-related moves. Maker of personal navigation devices. Garmin up 7% after earnings. Yum Brands, the owner of KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell, down 5%. The brewer Molson Coors down 3%. And the colon cancer test provider Exact Sciences down 7%.
Very good. Complete report. More tomorrow. David Wilson, thank you so much. Sooner than you think, it is on technology and a discussion, a terse discussion at times about the future of technology. Paul Sweeney in Brooklyn today. Paul?
Yeah, thanks very much, Tom. 2020 election coming up, obviously. Recently, Peter Thiel and Sheldon Adelson were among newly revealed secret donors to a key Republican campaign spending group. A watchdog group's victory in a long legal battle over donor disclosure could help shine a light on similar dark money groups gearing up for the 2020 elections. To get the latest, we welcome Ken Doyle, Bloomberg Government Senior Reporter for Money and Politics. Ken, thanks so much for joining us. This seems like a big deal. Historically, we have not really known the names behind some of these spending groups. What can you tell us?
That's it. There's been really almost $1 billion spent over the last decade by campaign spending groups that don't disclose their donors. They're known as dark money groups by critics. So, we have a lot going on in our political system where we just don't know who the people that are giving are and what their motivation is. I think the key takeaway from this is a group that operated, years ago, and there's been this long legal battle to reveal who they are. Some of the donors that came out, Thiel, the PayPal co-founder, and Adelson, the casino magnate, they're more well-known now in political circles than they were at the time, but we were able to, find out who they were and who a number of other people are funding this group. And I think the key takeaway going forward is that if you're asked to give $1 million to a campaign spending group and told that, your name will never be made public, you really can't count on that. There are disclosure rules. These groups claim to be exempt from disclosure rules, but that doesn't always prove out before the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, and the courts. And in this case, after a long legal battle, these names were revealed.
So, Ken, presumably this legal case, does this apply to pretty much all similar types of groups? So presumably Democratic supporting groups would also have, the kind of requirements here?
I mean, the rules obviously apply across the board to both sides, and there are many groups that support Democrats. It gets into the weeds a little bit in terms of the legalities. There are, it still is possible to give to groups that can prevent their donors from becoming public, but they have to be very careful. The main issue is whether it's a policy group or an election group, and the rule there is that if an organization is spending most of its money on campaigns, it's a political election group, and if it's spending most of its money on other things like policy, lobbying, and things like this, then it doesn't necessarily count as a political group that has to disclose. But what happens is that many of these groups that just are started up, by somebody who wants to influence a particular election, they don't really follow those rules. And when somebody challenges it, where there are cases before the FEC or the courts, when somebody takes a close look at this, they say, "Oh no, you weren't a non-disclosing group. You're actually a political action committee, and you have to disclose."
So, Ken, give us a sense. I have a good feeling for advertising spending targeting on the political. That's just been a huge growth story for really local television stations, for example. Do we have a sense of kind of the trend in money that's been spent on some of these dark pools over the last several election cycles?
Well, as I say, there's been almost $1 billion over the last 10 years. Now, that is not the biggest portion of spending. I think we're going to see a 2020 election where we're going to have, approaching $10 billion total just spent on federal elections. So we're seeing, as you say, just a tremendous amount of money going into these races and mostly into TV ads, more and more into online ads as well.
Yep.
So, we do see, an ever-growing amount of money going into our political system. And the thing that's interesting here is, do we know where that money is coming from? And if we don't know, do we really know what's going on in the political system? Do we know why Congress and the administration make the decisions they make? I think what happens is that the public doesn't know who these donors are,
right.
But the candidates know. The candidates know where it's coming from and what they need to do.
Ken, thanks so much for joining us. It's a fascinating story here, and looks like there may be some more transparency on where some of this money is coming from. Ken Doyle, Bloomberg Government, Senior Editor for Money and Politics. Pretty interesting, Tom. And no surprise to anybody, right, Tom? Just big money into politics. It's been a long-time story.
Maybe we got something to learn from England, where it's like 6 weeks.
Yes.
Off you go.
Make your best case.
That's how I would look at it. I look at GE, Paul, as a turnaround. Of course, Mr. Culp, legendary at Danaher on this as well. And he comes over, and, there was the headline out of 30 headlines, organic revenue growth, mid-single digits, and that's still the bottom line. They got to grow revenues like everybody else.
Yeah, and it's about cash flow to support that debt, and it's something that we've been hearing about for the last couple of quarters. But there's a lot of, I think, confidence in Mr. Culp here.
The tape right now, we got a Fed feel very quiet. Futures up 3. Dow futures up 12. I would note yen is that global proxy. Thanks to Jordan Rochester of Nomura for perspective there. Really buttressed up right against a 109. Weaker yen. It's Fed Day. This is Bloomberg.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Tom. More testimony is expected today in the impeachment inquiry. Yesterday, a Ukraine expert on the National Security Council testified. U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman told congressional investigators he raised concerns twice that President Trump and his European Union ambassador, Gordon Sondland, inappropriately pushed Ukrainian leaders to investigate the Biden family. Thousands of first responders in California are still battling wildfires up and down the state. Strong Santa Ana winds with gusts of up to 80 miles an hour could last through tomorrow. The NCAA says it will allow student athletes to profit off their name, images, and likeness eventually. The details will come out a bit later. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg Time.
I'm Michael Barr. Thanks so much. Again, Fed Day, a little green on the screen. We'll see where that ends as we migrate to 2 o'clock. Bloomberg Radio with full coverage, 2 p.m. This is Bloomberg.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/award.
The lifeblood of tech startups isn't just money. It's executive and technical skills. The kind of skills that companies need to build real products. And the skills that venture capitalist Chris Sugden of Edison Partners sees in the graduates that are coming out of New Jersey Institute of Technology.
The amazing thing about NJIT is their graduates, they have multiple offers on average, not just one. They're coming out with real skill sets that are immediately hireable and available to them. I think we see an understanding by the faculty and administration at NJIT that we got to train and educate the whole student, not just their, one side of their brain. And I do think that's sort of part of the DNA today. There's practical and there's sort of academia, and merging those two together and understanding that if we're going to have our young people go get great jobs and have great successful careers, they've got to have both sides of their brain activated. And I think we see that with NJIT.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its cymbals when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring.
Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply. I tell you what used to be fair, lunch.
Used to walk past pubs and just see people laughing and merriment. What happened to those cheery days? I tell you what happened to them. It's been replaced by a pint glass sitting by a computer full of condiments, plastic cutlery, and a pair of chopsticks you use for fishing the noodles out your keyboard. It's just not fair.
At TalkTalk, fairness is important. That's why, unlike some other providers, we offer fixed price plans on our fibre broadband for the entire length of your contract. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
Fly with Cathay Pacific to over 70 destinations across Asia and Australia and move beyond the familiar. State-of-the-art cabins, world-class entertainment and award-winning service, making sure you arrive ready to make the most of whatever lies ahead. Whether it's the stunning coastlines of Sydney, the secluded waterfalls of Bali, or the baroque splendor of Manila, book now at cathaypacific.com. Cathay Pacific. Move beyond.
Tonight, it's Liverpool v Arsenal and Chelsea v Man United in two truly classic matchups. And with Now TV, you can watch both games live for a one-off payment of just $9.99. Hold on, they're checking with VAR.
That's confirmed, it's $9.99.
What a game changer. So, to only pay for the games that matter to you, grab a Now TV Sky Sports Day Pass. Search Now TV Sports. 18 plus, content streamed via internet, full terms apply.
From Bloomberg Television, here's Taylor Briggs.
C-Trip is the leading online travel agency and the parent of travel sites like Trip.com and Skyscanner. The company provides one-stop travel services such as accommodation and ticket reservations, as well as vacation packages. Despite rapid growth since its start in 1999, the company has seen its shares decline amid tensions like the U.S. trade war and Hong Kong protests. The C-Trip CEO, Jane Sun, spoke to my colleague Bloomberg's Tom McKenzie in Beijing.
Is top-line growth being weighed down by this near-term weakness in the economy?
The Hong Kong-Taiwan situation, yes, it has a negative impact on our top line. But I think these are, one-time kind of thing. So we will see through it and make a strong investment in the long term.
How would you characterize the impact, the broader impact of the trade war on your business?
I'm very hopeful that the leaders from both countries will have the wisdom to focus on our shared interest. And there are so much things we share together and maximize our shared interest.